grief isn't so much a line as much as it's a circle. And we might go through steps 1 through 3, skip to step 6, have to come back to step 2. Then we're at step 7, and then we're all the way, something happened, and we're all the way back at step 1. Unfortunately, that's usually how it works, y'all. Grief isn't a 1, 2, 3 kind of thing. It's a 1, 7, 5, 3, 6, 2, 4. It's a circle. We cycle in and out of the phases of grief. And here's the thing, we're usually grieving more than one thing at the same time. So depending on what it is you're grieving, you might be in step 1 about one thing, and then in step 4 about something else. Because unfortunately, life doesn't throw us things one thing at a time. Hey y'all, this is Dr. LaLa. Welcome back to another episode of the RE3Volve Podcast. This is the space where believers meet at the intersection of grief, loss, and transition to explore how faith and therapy help along the way, because grief and loss are a journey, not a final destination. So, how y'all doing today? You know, it's summer. Can you believe it is already the middle of July? I think right now we're recording, it's the middle of July, and the summer has flown by. And I am having a hard time believing just how fast this summer has come and gone. Here soon, it'll be time for school to start back and doing all the things. And so, the RE3Volve Podcast is going to be changing up just a little bit. We're going to start having what I like to call legacy table talks. We're going to start including Karis in some of these conversations. And for those of you who don't know, Karis is my 15-year-old daughter. She has been on this journey with me throughout the years. And, you know, we talk a lot about grief, loss, and transition. We talk about generational healing. We talk about how, you know, the things that we're doing to heal are not just about us. And so I thought that it would be a good idea to bring her in on some of these conversations to get her perspective. And of course, we'll be bringing in some other guests so we can start having some RE3Volve conversations where we bring in some therapists and counselors, pastors, professionals, folks we know and love, to get different perspectives about grief, loss, and transition. Because the reality is, no matter who you are, no matter what you do, no matter what your station in life, we all experience change. And so, you know, I think it's important to have these conversations with different folks, get different opinions and thoughts, and some other expertise, some professionals on the podcast with me, so that we can have these conversations, so that we can have a broad range of voices, you know? So I'm looking forward to moving forward with the RE3Volve Podcast. We're growing, and really and truly just to have some other voices and conversations, because one thing about life is that there is always going to be change. Always. That's actually one of the only constants. One of the only thing that's always going to be is change. And so I think it's important that we learn how to navigate change, and that we learn how to, you know, navigate our new normal, and that we learn how to grieve well, and to have these conversations about grief and, again, loss and transition, because oftentimes we focus on death as the primary reason for grief, but there are so many other reasons that we grieve. And so I'm looking forward to RE3Volve expanding the conversation. And so today we're going to talk about grief today, and we're going to actually be talking about how when we're grieving, sometimes we feel like we're behind. Yeah, right? And because a lot of times when we're grieving, our clocks get off. We lose all sense of time. And, you know, we start to feel like we're behind in life. Some folks start to feel as though their healing needs to speed up. Some people lose track of purpose. And one of the hard ones is when you start to compare the person that you are today to the person you were yesterday, to the person you were before this thing happened, this thing that upturned your life, right? So let's start with how grief disrupts our internal clocks, because we do lose track of time. There may be, and especially when you lose someone you love, time gets completely off. There can be days when you sit there, and I have experienced this myself, when my mom passed away. I've talked about this before on the podcast, how there was this one particular day after my mom passed. I had been sitting at the kitchen table. When I came to myself, I had been sitting at the table for hours. I had completely lost track of time. And it happens. I'm talking about this one particular day, right, where it happened for me. But the reality is that I talk about that one day, but it actually can happen for weeks and months, where you have these periods of you losing track of time, or you continue to just take each day as it comes, and the next thing you know, a month has passed by and you're wondering, where did the time go? It happens. It does. And that's okay, because grief creates these seasons where honestly, you just don't have the energy, right? Your energy is inconsistent. Sometimes you're just not motivated to even get out of the bed, to get a shower. You have a hard time concentrating. You can't even get a task completed because you can't concentrate long enough to get it done. Your emotional capacity may fluctuate. Some days you just don't have the energy to deal with anybody's stuff except your own. Some days it happens, right? And then there are those days when rest is a necessity. Prior to this incident, you were one of those people who was up at 6 a.m. and you got up on go. You were already on 10 as soon as your eyes opened and your feet hit the floor. You were ready to get the day going. But now you're in this space where some days it's hard to even open your eyes. Some days you have to talk yourself into getting out of bed. Some days you sit on side the bed for 30 minutes before you even have the energy to get up. And it's that way sometimes. And it's not uncommon to beat yourself up, because you keep thinking to yourself, at some point you get to this place where it's like, okay, it's time to move forward. I gotta get moving. Something's gotta change. And so you start having these conversations with yourself about why you can't get moving. And if that's where you are right now, I want to offer you some encouragement and tell you that there's nothing wrong with you. You are literally grieving. And grief is not just something that takes place in your heart. It also takes place in your mind, and it also takes place in your body. And so because you have to give yourself this space and grace to walk this out, I want you to know that this is not a failure on your part. You're not doing anything wrong by needing to take this time for yourself. Because when we're grieving, our bodies start a different rhythm. We start to function differently. Our nervous system start to recalibrate. because that's its job, is to take care of us, right? So our nervous systems start to shift so that it can give us what we need to make it through each day. Our brains have to reorganize its thoughts, because there may be days when you pick up the phone to call that person that you love, and have to realize in real time, as the phone is ringing, that they're not going to answer. And so that's something that your brain has to reset to. Your brain has to tell itself, mommy's not going to answer. So you have to give yourself that space and grace. The energy that it takes to process your feelings. Because that doesn't happen in a vacuum. Right? Let's take the previous example. You pick up the phone to call your mom, and you realize in real time that she's not going to answer the phone. And so now your emotions are all over the place, right? Now you are devastated because you have to process the fact that you picked up the phone to call mommy, and you realized in real time that she wasn't going to answer. And now your emotions. And so now we're navigating that. Now we're dealing with the fact that I called mama. She wasn't going to answer the phone, and I didn't realize it until after I had called her. And so now I'm crying. I'm upset. I'm a mess. And now everything is in survival mode. Because yes, this has happened, but the baby's crying. Toddler's hungry. This assignment is still due. I still have other things that I need to do. There's still someone waiting on a deliverable. And so our bodies have to learn, our nervous systems have to learn a new rhythm. Our brains have to reset those patterns and pathways so that we can remember that mommy's not going to answer the phone anymore. And so you have to give yourself the grace for that, right? Because at the end of the day, our nervous system's job is to take care of us. And sometimes that looks like slowing down so that we're able to keep going, so that we're able to take it one day at a time. Because this is a marathon, not a relay race. Slow and steady is the goal, right? And so now let's talk about the pressure that many of us put on ourselves to catch up. Because now this thing has happened and we're trying to figure out, how do I catch up? Because I'm so behind. And that pressure comes from comparing ourselves to the person that we were before the loss, before the transition, comparing ourselves to other people, right? And I've had that conversation with folks. I remember I had this conversation with one young lady, and she said to me, I look at you sometimes and I tell myself, I don't have anything to be upset about. Because Sister Cook is going through this, and this. And she's not complaining. What I have going on is nowhere near what she's going through. So I don't have any reason to complain. And bless her, I stopped her right then and I said, listen, we each have our own journeys to go on. We all have our own struggles. We are each given assignments to our capacity. I can handle what I can handle, and you can handle what you can handle. But my situation is no greater than yours. Your situation is not less than mine because your situation is yours. And listen, we all struggling. This is not the struggle Olympics. Sis, we all struggling. So you're allowed to feel how you feel about this thing that you're going through. You're allowed to feel that way without shaming yourself and comparing yourself to what you perceive as my situation being so much worse. Because trust, there is somebody who can't handle what you're going through. That thing that you think isn't so much, there's somebody who would be collapsing under it. So be careful not to compare yourself to others, because we all struggling, all of us. Sometimes we have unrealistic expectations of ourselves. Sometimes we fear being left behind because everybody else's life has gone on. But we still struggling. The fear of disappointing people. That's also something that some folks struggle with. Because other folks think you're supposed to be at a certain place, doing a certain thing, and you haven't met their expectations. And a lot of times this pressure that we put on ourselves is rooted in judgment. How we judge ourselves. So can we just be really honest with ourselves and acknowledge that this pressure to catch up is sometimes about perfectionism? Everything having to be exactly right at the exact time, in the exact place. Sometimes it's about misunderstanding grief and how it works. Because for some folks, they think that grief is supposed to be a linear process. We go through this, this, and this. We go through steps 1 through 7. And once I go through all 7 steps, I'm over it. But the reality is that's not how it works. Grief isn't so much a line as much as it's a circle. And we might go through steps 1 through 3, skip to step 6, have to come back to step 2, then we're at step 7, and then we're all the way, something happened, and we're all the way back at step 1. Unfortunately, that's usually how it works, y'all. Grief isn't a 1, 2, 3 kind of thing. It's a 1, 7, 5. 3, 6, 2, 4. It's a circle. We cycle in and out of the phases of grief. And here's the thing, we're usually grieving more than one thing at the same time. So depending on what it is you're grieving, you might be in step 1 about one thing, and then in step 4 about something else. Because unfortunately, life doesn't throw us things one thing at a time. Sometimes they come in clusters. Sometimes they come back to back. But usually we have multiple things going on all at once, and learning how to navigate it can be exhausting. So sometimes we do struggle with emotional exhaustion when we're grieving, because all of those emotions can be overwhelming. You have those moments where you're laughing. Then there may be some times when you're crying. And then right behind that, you might be mad. And that can wear you out. Just being honest. And then sometimes there's a sense of urgency that you have because you're fearful of missing out, or you're fearful of not being able to move on. You're fearful of how other people are going to perceive you. You're fearful of not being able to get yourself together and how that might affect your employment. And so you have this sense of urgency about what's going on. It can be a lot. But let's pivot just a little bit and talk about how we can reframe what it means to be behind. So let's consider it as grief not putting us behind, but grief creating new priorities. Because now those things that used to be important, oftentimes when we lose someone, we realize that some of the stuff that we really stress about isn't nearly as important as we thought it was. Sometimes it gives us a deeper awareness of the folks around us and our values and the things that matter to us. It really shows us where we should be devoting our time and attention, the people and the things and the places. A lot of times it will help to give us a better idea of who we are, because sometimes we define ourselves by that thing. Because who are you now that you don't have babies at home to take care of anymore? Now you're an empty nester, and for the last 18 years, your entire life revolved around the children. So now you're trying to figure out, who am I now that I don't have to be mommy 24/7? Who am I now that I'm no longer the executive director of ABC company? Who am I now? Who do I want to be? Right? A lot of times going through grief puts us in the position where we spend more time with the Father. And so we grow spiritually. And oftentimes we grow emotionally in this season, right? And this is a season of transformation. It's not a season of delay. It's not a period of being behind. This is actually an area of opportunity. And so it's all about reframing the mindset about what life after can be. Because oftentimes it's just a different path. Not that you don't have a path at all. It may just be different. And sometimes that means we need to slow down a bit. Be a bit more quiet, more intentional, and in alignment with the Father's plan for us, right? And our faith plays a pivotal role in this journey, if you allow it to. Because it's all about the mindset and how you perceive that thing that you're going through, how you perceive the journey that you're on. Romans 12:2 says, "And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is good and acceptable and perfect will of God." Renewal takes time. And it's a process that can't be rushed. But it's all about the mindset. It's how you view it. The decisions you make. the conscious decision to redirect those negative thoughts, the conscious decision to rewrite that narrative, right? And then Isaiah 40:31 says, "But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint." So here God is promising renewal. If we wait on him and we're patient, that he will give us what we need so that we can move forward. But he didn't say it was going to happen overnight. He advised that we wait. And that if we wait on him, that he would renew our strength for the journey ahead. And of course, we can't talk about how faith helps without talking about therapy, because faith and therapy are very best friends on this journey, right? In therapy is where we can learn how trauma impacts the pace of our lives and the rhythms that we're in. It can help us redefine what progress looks like. Because honestly, when you're grieving, sometimes progress is the fact that you didn't sit on side of the bed for 30 minutes trying to get up. Right? Sometimes that's progress. Sometimes progress looks like you got out the bed at all. Sometimes progress looks like you brush your teeth today. Sometimes progress looks like you ate a decent meal today. So redefining what progress looks like helps us to reduce comparison, because your journey is just that. It's yours. And nobody else can walk the path that is assigned to you. Right? It's where we can learn the skills and tools to help us regulate our nervous systems. It's where we can learn how to honor our capacity, because some days we just don't have it. And it's okay to not be okay sometimes. Learning how to not be okay sometimes. Learn how to build boundaries around your energy levels, your energy reserves. Right? And it's also where we can learn how to release the pressure that we put on ourselves. Because more often than not, this feeling of behind is something that we put on ourselves. It's not something that's coming from the outside. So how to work on that internal barometer so that you don't continue to put that pressure on yourself, so that you can give yourself the space and the grace to go at a pace that's suitable for you. Because again, this is a marathon, not a relay race. And you're only in competition with yourself. No one else. And so as we close, I just want you to remember that grief doesn't make anyone behind. It doesn't. It makes you human. It makes you aware. It can help you to find courage that you didn't know you had. And it can be transformative if you let it. So be good to yourself and give yourself the space and the grace to take the time that you need so that you can heal well. And so until next time, keep choosing healing. Keep choosing joy. I love y'all. Bye. Grief isn't so much a line as much as it's a circle. And we might go through steps 1 through 3, skip to step 6, have to come back to step 2, Then we're at step 7. And then we're all the way, something happened, and we're all the way back at step 1. Unfortunately, that's usually how it works, y'all. Grief isn't a 1, 2, 3 kind of thing. It's a 1, 7, 5, 3, 6, 2, 4. It's a circle. We cycle in and out of the phases of grief. And here's the thing, we're usually grieving more than one thing at the same time. So depending on what it is you're grieving, you might be in step 1 about one thing, and then in step 4 about something else. Because unfortunately, life doesn't throw us things one thing at a time.